one of the things as well we've got to talk about the soundtracks here, because one of the things I should say about AD 72, I I I adore the Dracula AD 1972 soundtrack by Mike Vickers. And now I've got to talk about this because this was a journey. This was a journey. From the moment I watched the film, I was like, oh, I need to get this soundtrack. Now, at the time in the mid aughts, we didn't have a full. The Hammer soundtracks were very difficult to get hold of. The ones that actually got released were limited in number. Obviously, Scars of Dracula got a release. Taste the Blood of Dracula got a release. But then they did a number of compilations, and I was lucky enough to get my hands on this one. And obviously, this has the title track for AD 72. Obviously, that's the only track from AD 72 it has on here, only has the main title song. But I was thrilled to get even this. But then I was always thinking, man, I wish we could get the full thing. And then magic happened, believe it or not, and we got the full thing. And I don't know how. I don't know who made a deal with who. I don't know who sold their soul to who. But somehow, somewhere, we got the Dracula AD 1972 soundtrack. Because one of the things you always worry about films of this age, we don't even know a lot of the time if the master tapes for these soundtracks even survived. But thankfully, in the case of AD 72, we got it. And I couldn't believe my luck. And that's, for me, probably one of the things that I really like most about AD 72. Obviously, I like the opening carriage fight, I like the final battle. But yeah, next to that, then the soundtrack's probably next on the list. And I think that's one of the things that I actually like about AD 72 over Satanic Rites, the soundtrack, because I did get the soundtrack, they did end up releasing the soundtrack to Satanic Rites as well, and by John Sakavas. And again, I like it, but it's it's uninspired, and I say that because around this, just before Satanic Rites Dracula came out, Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee did Horror Express in 72, which is one of their best films. And you talk about a film that still holds up, yeah. And again, this is another one like Satanic Rites. This was in the public domain for a long time. Obviously, Arrow finally have given it this wonderful official release. Best it's ever looked, best it's ever sounded. Get this, you'll love it. But before that, we had numerous bootlegs, or, well, not necessarily bootlegs, obviously, because it was in the public domain, anyone could pick it up, but they were all varying quality, varying degrees of quality. This is the one I got originally, and again, it's a pretty decent enough release, but still doesn't compare to the Arrow release. But the point in all of this, obviously, you have a wonderful film here, which is very reminiscent of The Thing. It's kind of like the predecessor to John Carpenter's The Thing. And the soundtrack to this one, also by John Sakavas, is absolutely phenomenal. So for me, it's like, now that I know what John Sakavas can do when he's firing on all cylinders, the lackluster Satanic Rites score pales in comparison, basically. But what's nice about the Horror Express thing, well, it's a double-edged sword, because the Horror Express soundtrack is never been released in its entirety, but what we do have is a compilation album. It's basically tracks from a number of different films brought together in one album. So basically a selection of tracks from another film, and then Horror Express. There's about four or five Horror Express tracks that are included on the album. But the good thing about this one, while we haven't got the full thing, what we have got in this compilation album, it's actually available through YouTube. The album's been officially uploaded, so if you just type John Sacavas Horror Express, you'll be able to listen to it for free on YouTube. You won't have to worry about buying a CD or anything like that. It's just there to enjoy. And please go and immerse yourself, because the Horror Express soundtrack is, it's so cool and it's so atmospheric, and it really, we talk about how music can elevate a film and really add to the whole atmosphere and mood of the whole thing. The John Sacavas music score for Horror Express really does just that. It's so memorable, and iconic gets thrown around. The word iconic gets thrown around so much these days, but yeah, there's something special about the Horror Express score. But this is just this general discussion that we're having. Obviously inspired by the wonderful photo that my friend Simon sent me today, and then going back and watching Satanic Rites. Just that movie's got such an interesting vibe, and obviously I love the 70s. I really, really do. And again, it's just got such wonderful moments. Obviously, the exchange between Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, when Lee's Dracula's masquerading as Denham, and then that wonderful sequence as well beforehand, where obviously Peter Cushing's getting ready to go and confront Christopher Lee, and he forges that silver bullet from the crucifix that he melts down. It's just a wonderful, wonderful sequence. You got Peter Cushing there. He's always so comfortable, working with various different props. It's one of the things Christopher Lee admired about him. Because Christopher Lee always said about himself, he was useless when it came to working with props, but he was amazed, to great frustration even, how effortless Peter made it look. And he's just, he's got his Bunsen burner, he puts his little crucifix in there, melts it down, and he just smokes on a cigarette while it's just, he's just a master at work. And then there's, in his introductory scene into this film, the blocking of the whole thing, because he's owning the space, and he's going around the room because he's talking to Michael Cole's character, Inspector Murray, and his colleague. And then just, he's delivering the dialogue, opens his cigarette box, offers cigarettes, and just, again, just so naturally. And then just, he delivers the end of his line, and then Murray's colleague lights up Peter's cigarette for him. It's so perfectly timed and perfectly blocked out. It's wonderful.